good evening. I can hear you quite clearly.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
To start with, Madam Mogotsi, how would you, assess the overall gender responsiveness of Namibia's latest budget?
Perhaps we should start by saying that the government has made a commitment to ensure that Namibia follows a gender-responsive budget. There has been ongoing training happening, particularly in the Ministry of Finance, to make sure that our national budgetary processes are gender-responsive. As to what extent it is implemented, that is a question that we need to ask. Because once the budget is out there and the allocations are not sex segregated, it makes it very difficult for the average person to pick up the national budget and to be able to see of the $10 that we have, how much is allocated towards men, how much is allocated towards women, and how much is going towards the youth. Mm-hmm. One of the documents that I had to look through for a discussion that I was invited to, in that particular document, remember that the budget has multiple documents, but in one of the documents, there was only two, Ministry of Gender and Ministry of Urban and Rural Development, that was explicitly mentioning the word women, for example. The rest are not. They're silent about it. And this is why I'm saying perhaps if one sees the other documents, which I think, but till now, they are not yet public documents because they still need to be discussed in Parliament, that at that level, one would be able to say with a clear conscience how gender responsive our budget is.
If we look in terms of what's been allocated, Ministry of Gender received, I think, 473 million. So how, can Namibia ensure that gender equality is prioritized in the allocation of its resources, not particularly for women, and that's women in rural areas as well as women that fall under the marginalised community bracket?
Yes. I think what happened is that the bulk of the Ministry of Gender money or budget used to be the grants, either the orphan and vulnerable children's grants and the disability grants. And I think if I'm following the way I'm following the current conversations, is that all the grants will fall under one particular ministry. They will no longer be under Ministry of like Labor used to have the old age pension grants. The grants used to be all over. Now they are all going to be under one ministry.
Right.
Clearly, that is going to have implications in terms of the amount of allocations. And the 400,000 million, given the vastness of our country, given the needs that needs to be covered in terms of work that needs to be done by the ministry, I suspect it's not sufficient. Here is my consolation. If all the other ministries, and I'm looking here at Ministry of Lands, I'm looking here at Ministry of Urban and Rural Development, I'm looking at all these ministries that are running developmental projects. If all these ministries have components in their budget that deals with gender, then the pressure would not be so much on the Ministry of Gender, because by design, gender mainstreaming is supposed to be an aspect that is implemented across all our ministries. That would be the ideal situation.
I also want to know, Madam Mogotsi, did you see any, parts of the budget addressing, women's economic empowerment in terms of access to capital, land ownership, even employment opportunities?
Not explicitly. This is why I'm saying if we don't see it segregated, if we don't see a budget that says this amount, so much would be allocated towards land, and of that amount that goes towards land, so much would be for women, and so much would be for men, and so much would be for youth. If we don't see that, then it makes it very difficult to make a judgment. And like I said earlier, the other documents that accompanies the budget are not yet, I would almost want to say the operational budget documents.
Right.
Those ones are not yet for public consumption because they are still debated. So once they are out, we'll have to get our hands on those documents and really see whether the allocations is segregated. Then it will give us an indication.
Well, in the interim, seeing that we're still a bit in the dark without these documents, what would you like to see, happen in terms of economic empowerment of women?
Namibia has been doing relatively well. I mean, if one looks at whether one looks at land allocation, whether one looks at business ventures that Namibian women have been participating into, the Namibian women have been grabbing opportunities that are out there. I have seen opportunities where if entrepreneurship opportunities are made available, where there would be funds put aside for women and the youth, earmarked for that particular category. And that gives one hope that there is a deliberate attempt in some of our sectors to really prioritize women and the youth when it comes to opportunities like whether it's land allocation or whether it is business opportunities. The actual statistics of how many women have applied and how many women have successfully rolled out these ventures, those reports we never get to see. And I'm saying this with my best of intentions, and also with the understanding that perhaps this could be reports that are still going to be made public. Maybe we'll still see them, because just last year, I know I would see in the media a lot of opportunities where women were encouraged, apply these funds from Ministry of whether it was either from Ministry of Agriculture. These particular funds were really earmarked for young people and for women. Yeah. So, but to earmark a budget or to ring fence money and said this money is for this category of people, the only way how you would know that the money was used appropriately is when an evaluation report is made public, and we can now see the real statistics.
Madam Mogotsi, on that note, your final remarks this evening for us?
And I think it's just something that I really want to continue re-emphasizing, that as we advocate for gender equality, and particularly in our context as Namibia, we seem to be seeing an emerging issue where in some reports are showing that the boy children are somehow lagging behind academically and also in other sectors. We should start thinking of how do we ensure that we put capacities, we put resources, we put programming into force and fund these activities to ensure that the well-being of the boy child is attended to. And I really hope as we do that, we don't stop with the effort that we have taken so far with the girl child and women. Because once we stop with the women and we focus only on the boy child, we might find ourselves reversing the gains that we have made with women's empowerment and girls' empowerment. We should be able to start developing programs that run concurrently with men and boys and girls and women at the same time to ensure that we achieve gender parity and gender equality. That would be my last input, my sister.
Madam Mandy Mogotsi, thank you so much for your time this evening. Thank you for joining us here on the Daily Roundup.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the invitation.